Life Empowerment Center International. Welcome here to Fab Friday. It's me, LaMarcus Carter, the pastor here at Life Empowerment Center, and I'm welcoming each and every one of you here to Fab Friday, our Friday evening service here at Life Empowerment Center International. I'm glad, as I always am, and excited that you're joining us here on tonight. I'm glad that you tuned in on tonight. And listen, if you can do me a favor before we even get started, if you can just share the video and share it out to your page or send the link out or however you choose to share it. If you want to share the video on tonight, that would make me happy. So just share it out tonight. We're going to go into some more teaching. I thank God on tonight because I am grateful for everything that God is doing and everything that God has done in my life. It's amazing that whenever snow is coming, right, whether they tell you it's going to be 24 inches of snow or 2 inches of snow, everybody rushes to the store to make sure they have more than enough things that they probably wouldn't need, and get stuff even though they got stuff last time there were 3 or 4 inches of snow. But it's the panic of everybody going out and uncertain about what is coming, right? With the snow, one thing that I'm grateful for is because of my relationship with God and how God loves me and how I love him, that there's always a certainty in my day, right? There's never a what do you call it, a wave of uncertainty that comes up, because there are some things that I am assured to have because of my relationship with God. So I thank God on tonight. That was a different way of me saying that I thank God, but I thank God on tonight for everything that he's doing in my life. I thank God for my children and my wife, Keisha Carter, Tania and Layla Carter. Thank God for them. We just started planning our family vacation, so I feel like I may spend half the time I spend in preparing a message just for preparing for family vacation. It's like it's a part-time job for me. So I've been having some sleepless nights. No, I'm joking. It's never anything that makes me upset. You know, like who complains about, that's a first world problem, to complain about planning a vacation, but it's just something that we have coming up that always gets me excited. That's not coming up until like July or August, but you know, the planning for it gets me kind of excited. So that's what I've been spending my time doing, along with spending my time in the Word. Just a couple of announcements tonight. Then we're going to get into the teaching. We're still in Joseph. We're still talking about Joseph. We've gone past the foundation of Joseph's life, and now we're in the part where forgiveness kind of starts. Forgiveness and redemption. We're going to see the beginning of those tonight. So a few announcements, a couple of brief announcements. 9 a.m. on Zoom. If you want to join us for 9 a.m. Sensational Sunday with Pastor Anthony Price, our home church down in Delaware, in Wilmington, Delaware. We have our service on Zoom. He's been teaching continuously. We've been in this mode of both of us just being so full of gratitude and so full of thankfulness. But he's been teaching, and he'll be teaching on Sunday at 9 a.m. You can wake up, get the coal out your eye. You don't even have to turn your camera on. This isn't work. You don't have to turn your camera on like they do at work. But you can join us for Sensational Sunday at 9 a.m. At Monday, 7 a.m. I always say it's good to start your week off with prayer. I always say it's good to start the work week off, prepare for whatever's coming with prayer. So prayer is at 7 a.m., our prayer call information, along with our Wednesday service information, Wednesday at 7 p.m. All of that information is located on our social media page. Stay connected with us by social media, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook. Stay connected with us on social media so that you can see what is happening and what is going on in the ministry. So I encourage you all to do that. I encourage you, if at any time you want to make a donation, if you want to give or sow seed to the ministry, you can do so. The Cash App information is LECINJ, And with that donation, we'll go and do some great things for the community. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to get into the teaching on tonight. We're talking about Joseph. We're still in Genesis. Tonight we're going to be in Genesis chapter 42, verses 1 through 8 is how we're going to start off tonight. Going through the study on Joseph, I think it kind of opened up some thinking about how we view family and how family has viewed us. I think that is setting us up for a time of redemption, a time of forgiveness. I think that if anything is going to be great within this year, if anything that is going to be powerful within this year, if you're going to command alignment, then that alignment has to start in a place where you have forgiven, right? You can't carry hurt and pain from years past into this year when you're saying this year is going to be one of the greatest years of my life, right? If you're saying that this year God has some great openings in store for you, this year God has some great things happening for you, you can't say all of those things and also say that you're holding on to things from the past. So if we are to grow into what God has for us, it starts with forgiveness. So let's go into the word on tonight. Just repeat after me. We make our victory proclamation every time before we go into the word. I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of the victory that we have on our lives. I think it's important that we remind ourselves of the great things that we have in store. This week we fasted, but it was an unusual fast, right? We fasted from complaining, and we fasted from complaining, and I found areas where I would have complained that I was now finding ways to praise God and thank God, right? I was finding times when I was frustrated, or I wanted to be frustrated, or I wanted to, get angry, that I was thanking God for those things. I wanted to get angry at people for doing things that I didn't think was right. I wanted to get upset when things just weren't working out the way I thought they wanted to work out. But instead of me complaining, I found a place of praise. And I'm thankful to God that I was able to find a place of praise, because when you start to find your place of praise, you can now walk out in a life of victory. So I had to find those places where I would complain and I would get mad and I would fuss and I love to fuss, and I would get angry or go off of my emotions. But I found, instead of doing that, I said, okay, I'm going to focus on God and start praising God and put praise in the atmosphere. And when you start to do those things, you begin to walk in victory. So repeat after me, you victorious, blessed people. I am victorious. I walk in victorious faith. I serve a victorious God. Therefore, I live a victorious life, for I know God's plan for me is success, abundance, and victory. Genesis chapter 42, verses 1 through 8 says this: When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at each other? Listen," he went on, "I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, that we will live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought, I'm going to read that again. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brothers Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought something might happen to him. The sons of Israel were among those who came to buy grain, for famine was in the land of Canaan. Joseph was in charge of the country. He sold grain to all his people. His brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan to buy food," they replied. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Father, we thank you, we honor you for allowing us to be together here once again. We pray that you speak to your people through me, your vessel. In Jesus' name, amen. So, as we continue to talk about Joseph, and we've talked about how his family caused him harm, right? How his father marking him as the favorite caused his brothers to hate him, right? And then once his brothers hated him and they were acting irrational, they wanted to kill him, but they ended up selling him into slavery, right? We talked about these last few weeks. That's the beginning of Joseph's story, right? Tonight we kind of fast forward. We're going to hit fast forward a little bit because we're going to go to a time where Joseph and his brothers are back together, right? They're back in the same room together. There were 20 years between the time Joseph is sold into slavery until when he's back in the presence of his brother. So there's a 20-year time span, right? We're fast forwarding 20 years. It's like the movie Click. He was 17 at the time of being sold, and now in this text, he's 37. After being sold into slavery to Egypt, he got to work for a high-ranking officer in Egypt. He's got to work in a high-ranking officer in Egypt's house by the name of Potiphar, right? His work in Potiphar's house is great. Like, he's doing fantastic work in Potiphar's house. He's trusted until Potiphar's wife claims Joseph has slept with her. So Joseph gets thrown in jail, right? Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I hear the story of Potiphar's wife and Joseph, as a black man, as we're African-American man, as we're approaching Black History Month, there is certain context to a man being accused of things by a wife of a different nationality. I'll just leave it at that. So it triggers some things in me when we talk about Joseph, getting thrown in jail, for something he didn't commit. Anyway, Joseph's in prison, right? And while he's in prison, like that thing happened over 2,000 years. It happened thousands of years ago, and it's still, I'm like, come on, Potiphar's wife. Now Joseph's in prison. He interprets a dream because of the gift that God has on his life. And Joseph is now put into a position where the Pharaoh needs him, right? The Pharaoh needs him because the Pharaoh's having a dream. He wants to know an interpretation of the dream. And he finds out that the one that can interpret dreams is in prison. So the Pharaoh needs him. He recognizes God's favor and God's glory on Joseph's life. And, right, he goes from being in prison to ascending to a position that is second only to the Pharaoh, right? The Pharaoh's like, he's second in charge. When I'm not here, he here, right? He's like the vice Pharaoh, right? He's the deputy Pharaoh or assistant Pharaoh, or he's the second one in charge. He's the second in command. He's the one that's standing right next to the Pharaoh. He ain't the Pharaoh, but if the Pharaoh's out of pocket, the Pharaoh's gone, then you respect him just like the Pharaoh. Like he's the I want to say vice president, but people don't like vice presidents all of a sudden. But he's like the vice president, right? He's not the president. He's the vice president. He's not the manager. He's not the store manager, but he's the assistant store manager. He's second in command. And Joseph has this power that you would assume he would garner with his favoritism, or the power of someone who was the chosen one of the family, right? It's the kind of power that you would assume Joseph would have. It's just not in the place that you would assume Joseph would have that power. Like you would think that power would come when he's in his homeland. You wouldn't think that power would come when he's in a foreign land and when he was a prisoner. Like, you don't go from being a prisoner to being one of the most powerful people in the land. Now, Nelson Mandela, who great man, Nelson Mandela, who was an apartheid fighter, he spent 27 years in jail, and then he arose to president of South Africa, and that was like a huge thing. That's a huge story. That's a big thing that happened. That's a historical event because someone who was at the lowest point raised to a position in the highest point. And I think that if we step back and view how Joseph went from prison to being second in command, from prison to power, we'll see the power of God working in Joseph's life. Now, there is many people who would stop here and this would be their whole message. But I'm talking about the family dynamic, the redemption, and the forgiveness here. But there's many people that would stop here and they would say, you know, after you've been in the prison, after you've been at your lowest point, then you'll be able to rise to whatever the highest point you would assume is coming in your life, right? They would say that after you suffer for a little bit, after you've been through some bad for a little bit, after you've been falsely accused for a little bit, then you'll be able to rise up to a place of destiny, rise up to a place where you are great. And okay, but my prayer for you, and this is a little side note, my prayer for you is that whatever pit or whatever prison that you already been in, that it won't get any worse than this, right? My prayer is that you've already lived through the worst time and the worst moments of your life. Like your ascension to being great, right? It has already started. Like you may not have seen it start. You may not feel like it's starting, but that ascension to being great has already started. You're now starting to walk out and fulfill some of the purposes that God has in your life. You won't have to be thrown into a worse prison than you've been in. You won't have to be thrown into a pit that's worse than what you've been in. You've been through the worst of your life. And now you're gonna, walk in God's destiny for your life. That's a side note. But that's my prayer for you, is that you've been through the worst already, because you may feel like you can't go through anything worse. You may feel like you can't go through anything that is worse than what you've been through. But side note, the prison you've been in, the pit that you've been in, is the worst, is the lowest you'll ever be. You won't go any lower than that. You've already went through your low time. It may still seem like you're not there yet, but you're crawling out of that pit. You're fighting your way out of that prison. So that's just a side note. As we're walking through Joseph, because we got to get to Joseph meeting up with his brothers. So he ascends to the height of authority. He starts a family. He's well respected. And when he's at his greatest time, he's confronted with his past. Walking into his presence is the pain that he thought he left behind. Walking into his presence are the ones who threw him in the pit, right? Walking into his presence are the ones that he felt caused him to be at his lowest point. It's tough when you felt you made it and you made your way out and you felt you reached your goals, and now in walks your past, right? You're in a relationship, you're happy in your relationship, you've never been as happy in a relationship like the one that you're in, and in walks that ex, right? In walks that ex-boyfriend or ex-fiance, and he's got a fresh haircut, and you've never seen him. He done got in shape. Like he smelled good. He started making money. In walks some pain from your past. You've made it. You've ascended to the highest place you've ever ascended in life. You made it to this place where now you feel like you're on good ground and you feel like you're firm in your steps. And in walks your past. You feel like the hero and you feel like you've made it. So what do you do? What do you do when the hurt is back? What do you do when the people who brought the pain is back? The truth is, how you handle that moment is determined by who you are following and who you are closest to. If you're following your flesh, the next decision you make is going to be a fleshly decision. That's how you end up in a rut. That's how you end up in a cycle where you keep ascending, but you keep getting pulled back down because no matter what you do, you're still following your flesh. If your first reaction is to seek revenge, or you haven't allowed God to have complete control over your past, you haven't had that transformation yet in your life where that area of your past doesn't affect you anymore. It's still bringing up some memories. It may cause you to lose your way for a moment, but it shouldn't move you to do something that is out of your godly character. We have to respond with our godly character. We must do it because it doesn't mean we must do it, but it doesn't mean that we always will do it. It doesn't mean that because you are walking with Christ, because you are following with Christ, because you are committed to the life change, that you don't respond in the incorrect way. You could be a follower of Christ for many years. You can be someone who claimed to love God since you were young, and confronted by your past, you may still act fleshly. Let's look at the text. The text says that before Joseph has his past jump in his face, his father Jacob is confronted with his past. Before Joseph has to have an encounter with his past, his father has to have an encounter with his past. In the amplified version of the 4th verse, it says, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's younger brother, with his brothers, for he said, I'm afraid that some harm or injury may come to him. In Jacob's past, he's lost his son, right? In Jacob's past, he had a son leave and not return to him. It's been 20 years since he's seen Joseph, but he's still dealing with the pain of losing him. So when it's time to do something that is life or death, when it's time to do something that is literally to keep him alive, he's confronted by something that happened in his past. See, it's a famine where he is, right? This is literally a situation that is life or death. There's a famine in the land. This is not like, a chicken wing shortage. This is not like, there's no turkeys for this. This is no supply chain issue. This is a famine. And even though he's facing this life and death situation, he remembers what happened previously, and he chooses to keep his son, who's close to him, closest to him. His son that's close to him, he keeps him closest to him. Benjamin is the second son of the love of his life. So he refuses to lose him the same way he lost Joseph. Jacob is confronted with his past, and he chooses fear. If I let go of him, there's a chance he won't come back. If I let him walk out that door, there's a chance he'll be consumed like his brother was. If I allow him to move with the rest of his brothers, there's a chance I'll lose the one that's closest to me. Fear isn't your godly response. Fear isn't your godly response. We got to react to our past with a godly response. Fear isn't your godly response. Matthew says this, Matthew 10:28 says, don't fear those who kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. Rather, fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell, right? Don't fear past situations, because who you serve and who you love is greater than those past situations. Don't fear that the past is going to come back to destroy you, because the person that you're connected to, the God that you're connected to, is greater to whatever past that hurt you. I'm not dismissing your past. I'm not dismissing your hurt. I'm not dismissing your pain. Trust me, we've all been there. We all can agree. We all have a support group. So I'm not dismissing it all. But what I'm saying is, I can't move forward in fear because who I'm serving is greater than my past. Okay. When you're confronted with your past, fear isn't your godly response. Fear doesn't help you get over the past. Fear doesn't help you heal. Fear doesn't help you move forward. Fear doesn't help you move. Fear doesn't help you. You can't move to forgiveness and redemption in fear. And remember, in fear, right? We have to be able to move freely if we're going to get to a place of forgiveness and redemption. Fear wants to keep you connected to the hurt of your past. One of the reasons why people don't run away from abusive situations is because they fear going alone. So they rather remain abused because if they're abused, at least they're not alone. They'll tolerate something harmful out of fear. They'll tolerate something painful out of fear of moving forward. I'll deal with the pain for now because I can't deal with I'm too afraid of what will happen if I move. Jacob doesn't want to give up his youngest son. He knows what happened the last time. They all went away. All his crazy sons went away. He knows that last time when all his crazy sons was with the favorite didn't come back. So he's like, nah, y'all go. I got to keep him close. I got to keep him near to me. Jacob couldn't move. Jacob was confronted with his past, moved in fear. Joseph can't move to a place of forgiveness, to a place of redemption, if his brothers spark fear in his life. You can't move if something's sparking fear in your life. That's not the godly response. Your response is that you serve a God that's greater than your fears. So I'm not going to allow fear to keep me caught up. I'm not going to allow fear to keep me entangled with the past. Let's look at the text. The text says, chapter number 7, the text says, when Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke harshly to them. Joseph doesn't respond in fear. In fact, Joseph's response is triggered by a familiar event. When his brothers reach him, they all of them, bow down before him. Remember, the first week, it's the same picture, it's the same vision that Joseph had in his dream, where that his brothers would bow down before him. He was having his dream fulfilled, but this was also a trigger for him. When you are walking the path to forgiveness and redemption, you will have to deal with some triggers. And you will have to deal with something that'll trigger that emotion in you. I was watching something the other day, and this young man said that he doesn't listen to choir gospel music, right? He said he doesn't listen to black choir gospel music, right? And he said he can't listen to it because he said when he was young, he was much younger, his mother passed away. And then I think his grandmother passed away after that, but he had been to back-to-back funerals, like, in his youth. Like, it was very closely related funerals. And he said the songs he heard were songs like I'll Fly Away, or His Eyes on a Sparrow, or I'm going up yonder, and we like all those songs, but he said he realized hearing those songs that he'd never see his mother again. So now every time he hears a song, that song, or a song that's like that, those same moments or those same memories are triggered. So he stays away. That's what he said. He stays away from black gospel music, black choir music, because he doesn't want that feeling again. He hasn't completely healed from that yet. So anytime he hears it, it triggers something in him. When Joseph saw his dream fulfilled, that was a trigger to him. It should have been a reward. It should have been something that he took delight in. But it was a trigger. Joseph is triggered, and he's reminded of his dream and reminded of when he shared his dream with his brothers. So when he recognizes them and he remembers what happened when he first shared the dream, he remembers what happened 20 years ago when he told them about the dream. He's curious to their motives. He was apprehensive of what his brothers were there for. He was curious because not only were they there, he was curious because they didn't recognize who he was. He was curious because he didn't see his brother Benjamin, right? And he knows that his brothers are crazy. So he knows that his brothers are crazy. He knows that he and Benjamin are only two with the same mother. So he's a little uneasy in their presence. He's not fearful. He's just a little apprehensive. He just doubts what they're there for. He wants to make sure that their motives and their actions and why they're here before him are pure. He's weary of his brother's motives. But past failures don't define your future success. Or past failures don't define your future. I like it shorter, less words. Past failures don't define your future. Joseph is apprehensive because he remembers the failures of his brothers in the past. He remembers the nonsense that they did in the past. He remembers them saying, hey there, dreamer boy, we're going to kill you. He remembers, oh, hey, dreamer boy, we're selling you into slavery. He remembers the actions of the knucklehead brothers that he has. So he recognizes them. All the pain is triggered in his life because of a past memory, a past dream. And now he's apprehensive of what they're going to do next. But past failures don't define your future. Isaiah says this. Isaiah 43:18-19 says this, says, do not remember the past events. Pay no attention to things of old. Look, I'm about to do something new. Even now it is coming. Do you not see it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. Isaiah is saying, don't remember those past events. Let go of things that are old. If we're defined by our past, many of us will still be hopeless. If we're defined by our past, many of us wouldn't be on a road of redemption. Many of us wouldn't be on a road to forgiveness. Many of us wouldn't be on this road where we're aligning things in their proper order. We wouldn't be on this quest of trying to complete relationships that have fallen apart. If redemption is attainable in this relationship, if forgiveness is going to happen in this relationship, Joseph can't assume that his brothers are there to do him harm again. One of the hardest things to do when it comes to forgiveness, when it comes to redemption, is to not anticipate the one who did the offense is seeking to do the same thing again. Because something will trigger that memory in you. Something will trigger that pain in you. But you can't assume that they're there to do the same thing all over again. I'm trying to get past it, but something just triggered a memory of how bad things were for me. Something just triggered a memory of the pain and the bullying you put me through. But past failures don't define your future. If past failures don't define your future, past failures don't define their future. Yes, they did some things wrong to you. Yes, they caused some hurt. Yes, they caused some pain. But if we are to grow to forgiveness, we have to understand that past failures don't define their future. Past hurts don't define their future. It doesn't define who you are. You've grown. You've matured. You've become better. So you give them the opportunity. You give them the opportunity to show that they've grown, they've become better. Now there may be some instances where redemption is just not in the cards. Forgiveness can still be there, but there may be some instances when redemption is impossible, where that relationship can't be put back together. But you can't allow the past failures to determine someone's future. The past failures doesn't define you. Past failure. I can't even remember his name. The guy who did the iPhone, Steve Jobs, was kicked off of his own company. He created Apple, was kicked out of Apple because he was terrible at the time. He was kicked out of Apple. People fail before they succeed. People mess up before they become great. I'm almost done, y'all. I'm almost done. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to go deeper into Joseph's reaction to his brothers. But one thing Joseph does that's wise is, even though he's a little apprehensive, he doesn't make a hasty decision because he allowed the Spirit to guide him. Remember I said how you react to certain things in your past, when you're confronted with your past, is defined by who you are closest to or who you are following. Joseph was following and guided by God's Spirit. He wasn't guided by flesh. He knew who they were, but he didn't allow his flesh to make the final decision. Now, he does some things that we'll discuss in the next few weeks that are kind of, what's going on, Joseph? But he doesn't make his final decision based off of his flesh. He makes his final decision based in the Spirit. He's following the Spirit of God. And that's what kept the possibility of forgiveness, the possibility of redemption alive, was that he was able to follow God's Spirit. 41st chapter of Genesis, the previous chapter, when Pharaoh is choosing Joseph, it says, Genesis 41:37, it says, the proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants, and he said to them, can we find anyone else like this? He's talking about Joseph, a man who has God's Spirit in him. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you are. How did he keep the possibility of forgiveness alive? How did he keep the possibility of redemption alive? How did he stay on the road to redemption? How did he stay on the road to forgiveness? Joseph was able to follow the Spirit of God. Forgiveness and redemption are impossible without following the Spirit. You can't have forgiveness. You can't have true redemption unless you're following the Spirit. You want to be able to fully forgive someone, fully give up whatever has been hurting you, and fully come to a place where you can now have redemption and restore the relationship. If you want to get to that place, you can't do it following your flesh. You have to be able to do it following the Spirit of God. Forgiveness and redemption are impossible without following the Spirit. So Joseph doesn't make a rush decision. He may still be apprehensive. He may still want to try to understand and discern their motives. But he doesn't immediately see his brothers, and with all the power that he has, command his brothers to death, because he had that power. He's second in charge. He doesn't get his brothers jumped. But he's following the Spirit of God. Even when you can see there's a wrestling there. Because he wants to assume the worst. But he still has to listen to the voice of God. And I'm done, I'm closing. And as we continue to walk in this path, or this road to forgiveness and this road to redemption, understand there's going to be some times when the Spirit will wrestle with your flesh. There's going to be times where you want to make a hasty decision, where you want to make a decision angry, where you want to speak out of anger. But we have to be just like Joseph. When we want to do harm, when we want to do wrong, follow the Spirit of God. It's the only way we're going to get to forgiveness. It's the only way we'll get to redemption. So I'm done. I thank you so much for joining us here on tonight. Listen, if you've enjoyed anything you've heard on tonight, please stay connected with us on social media. You can text BETTER in the letter U to 474747 to stay connected with us. Also, if you enjoyed yourself, please share the message and invite someone to just interact with us, whether it's on social media, it's on YouTube, or it's here on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and I pray that God will keep you and protect you until the next time we come together. And never forget, you blessed people, that life change begins with you. Stay blessed.